Hi, everybody. I'm pleased to report that I got the player on the BBCA website to work, so I was actually able to watch Rosa tonight, and I have to say, I am so glad I was able to. Um, it's funny, I've heard my mother um, mention before about, remembering how school in elementary school was segregated, and she was telling me one time about how, after the law was enacted, uh, the bus driver pulled the bus over and spoke to the kids and said, "We have to let their kind on. I don't like it. You're not going to like it. And but it's how it has to be. And I don't want any fighting on my bus or anything like that." And it's weird because she grew up with that. And in history class, I remember reading about Rosa Parks and admiring her for her bravery because Alabama, the deep South, that's what we call, Virginia, Alabama, those particular states. I hate to say it. I mean, it was so firmly entrenched, and you still see, bits and pieces of it now, but back in the 50s, gosh, that woman she could have been beaten, in jail. She could have, so much could have happened to her. And she just peacefully kept her place. I'm not giving it up. That is, of all the people in history, we make mention of Mrs. Parks, but people like Malcolm X or Dr. Luther, Dr. King, you know, they have a bigger placeholder in history. And I'm really glad that the Doctor Who team decided to focus on Mrs. Park's story, even though, there was a side note with Kroska, sorry, um, and, his parts and things. But the whole fact of the nutshell is that with a mixed team like with the Doctor has right now, we have a Pakistani, we have, um, a in the United States we call them African Americans. I'm not sure, if there's a political correct term in the UK for it or not, and then a white man and a white woman. It's a very dangerous combination to be going back in the 1950s, 1960s. So I wish I could say, that there was a lot of poetic license, taken with this, but there wasn't. Uh, During one of my travels to West Texas, there's actually a what they call the ghost town. There's a small population of people that live there. And there's a building, and it's a bathroom. And for some reason, the people who live there decided to keep it as a mark to how history was back then: his, hers, and coloreds. And the first time I saw it, I felt disgusted. And I guess it's a testament to how my mom raised us, but I don't remember ever running into racism as a kid until pretty much my second week of middle school. Um, it's three grades crammed into the building, and I was coming out of a classroom, and I heard this one girl just shout top of her lungs, "I'm tired of all these white people." And it bothered me. And I went home, and mom realized I was, distracted by something. So I told her what happened, and that's when she really, got into the history about how things were. You know, I I was raised not to see color. My ex-husband's Puerto Rican, so fortunately our parents did really well with that, although there were some holdovers at times. But I have to give kudos to the writing team for staying true, even though it's a political hot potato back then, and it's still thanks to some morons in office and others who feel that we need to go back to this particular time. Yeah, I'll call them morons too, because it's just not right. It's beyond not right. But, seeing this, and again, you're pointing fingers a little bit at stuff that's going on around the world in regards to race and religion and sexuality and even gender. I mean, it's still a big, brief use the term hot potato, and it probably will be for a long time. A human being by himself is an incredibly intelligent person. You get a group of them together, and the IQ drops 50 points per every 5 to 10 people gathered. I don't know. I remember reading this somewhere sometime. It was satire, but what do you do? Um, I have to give a little bit of kudos here for the actors. I once read somewhere somebody had said that probably one of the worst accents to be told that you have to mimic is the southern accent. Doesn't matter if you're from Texas with a Texas drawl all the way to the deep south like South Carolina. You know, it's not easy. I mean, a lot of us in the United States have difficulty with it. I can't even imagine people who were trained in the UK. So, definite kudos. I mean, having grown up, watching certain things and being around people, an American can tell, yeah, not quite right, but they got pretty darn close. And it didn't sound. You remember some of those old shows where it's like, yeah, I gotta go down to the county store? It's obviously put upon and not well done. And a lot of care was taken with this. So whoever the dialect coach was, big kudos for them. I was astounded at Dr. Martin Luther King showing up in the Parks home, and Ryan's, obvious. Oh my God, this is Dr. King in the Parks' home, no less. That was good casting on that part too, because he looked remarkably a lot like Dr. King. Um, so, writing was great. I am curious as to really what this Kroskus problem was, and why he felt he had to do it. And they didn't give us really a timeline as to far as to how he was able to get his hands on this stuff, like the vortex manipulator. Didn't somebody say at one point that Jack had one, but it was incredibly rare? So how would a criminal come across this or the other equipment that he had, antiquated or not? It's still not cheap. So I'm curious as to whether or not we get more information on that. Uh, Music choice, that last song, combined with the montage of, Ryan watching Rosa and Rosa just like not doing it and that music going, and I started crying. I'm not going to be a coward on this. I'm going to admit it. It brought tears to my eyes. And again, kudos. Big time kudos for the director and the music group, because that was an amazing choice. It fit well. And I loved how the doctor did the little thing at the end with the Mrs. Parks being given the Congressional Medal of Honor in 1999. I'm sad to say I didn't even remember that happening, but there was a lot of stuff going on in 99 back then that I had issues with, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to the news. Excuse me, it's been a long day. But I think this is probably one of my most favorite episodes of the season so far. So I'm curious as to what your guys' thoughts on this are. For those across the globe who aren't in the United States, you know, when you're taught about Mrs. Parks, what were you taught? Do you know of any side effects from what happened here, in your country? It's a question I never thought to ask, so I'm asking it now. And a big, big thank you to Chibnall and the writing team for this episode. After what I saw yesterday with the arachnids, it made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me smile, it made me proud that we have such an amazing woman in our history, and I really, really hope that her legacy never fades, because what she did was amazing, and I think every citizen of Earth needs to stand up and say thank you, Miss Parks, for taking the first step, for doing this. So I loved it. Plain and simple. I loved it. I wonder how they're going to top this particular episode. I really do. I hope they can, but at my heart of hearts, it was brilliant. And so, yeah. To quote our favorite doctor, it was brilliant, and so was he. But yeah, my brain just decided to take a left turn. But again, yeah, if you guys watch this, please just let me know what you thought about it, and if the question's appropriate, then give me an answer if you don't mind. You guys take it easy, and I'll see you next time.